Konnichiwa! Welcome to Japanese Cooking Ichie. Today I will introduce how to perfectly recreate Ichiran Tonkotsu Ramen. Ichiran is a famous ramen shop in Japan, so popular that there's always a line. Making tonkotsu ramen at home is quite difficult. However, with this recipe, you can easily make very delicious tonkotsu ramen in just 15 minutes and at a low cost. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get started. First, let's introduce the ingredients. 80 grams of dried noodles. I use dried noodles from the brand Marutai Ramen. For recreating Ichiran, it is recommended to use thin, dried noodles. 30 grams of pork belly. Choose a fatty cut of pork to transfer its flavor into the soup. Also, for later cooking steps, make sure to use sliced pork rather than block meat. 300 milliliters of water for the soup. And then the seasonings. I will explain the roles and effects of each seasoning later. Finally, here are the ingredients for the sauce and toppings. These are optional, but if you want to perfectly recreate Ichiran, please prepare them. Now, let's move on to the cooking steps. This time I recommend using a small pot. First, set the small pot on the stove and add 300 milliliters of water. Then, heat it over medium heat. Next, cut the 30 grams of pork belly with scissors as you add it to the pot. For the next steps, please keep the size about this large. Typically, pork bones are used to make the broth, but that takes a significant amount of time, so we're using the pork itself. In traditional ramen, broth is not made using pork meat, so this is the biggest difference between my ramen and regular ramen. Next, let's add the seasonings. Add 1 tablespoon of lard. Animal fat is necessary to give richness to the soup. To eliminate the smell of the pork, add 2 teaspoons of sake. To balance the flavor, add 4 shakes each of garlic powder and ground pepper. Whole peppercorns are also fine, but for better infusion into the soup, ground pepper is recommended. And finally, add half a tablespoon of powdered gelatin. Tonkotsu broth contains a lot of collagen extracted from pork bones, which is the secret to its rich flavor. In this recipe, we add gelatin, which is primarily made from animal collagen, to compensate for components that can't be extracted from pork bones. Powdered gelatin is very important, so please be sure to include it. Once all the seasonings are added and the pot reaches a boil, cover it and simmer for 10 minutes. Now, while the soup is simmering, let's prepare the ramen sauce. Prepare a small bowl and mix the seasonings. 1 teaspoon of gochujang, 1/2 teaspoon of shichimi togarashi, 2 shakes of pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of sesame oil, 1/3 teaspoon of water. Mix until it looks like this. This sauce goes very well with tonkotsu broth, so I highly recommend trying it. In addition to the sauce, let's also prepare some green onions as a topping. Now, let's return to making the soup. After simmering for 10 minutes, turn off the heat. It should be in a state like this. Now, for the most distinctive feature of this recipe, use a blender to blend it for about 1 minute. By using a blender to break down the chunks of pork and mix them in, you can infuse the soup with the aroma and flavor of the pork. Traditionally, ramen draws out the pork aroma and flavor by slowly simmering pork bones. This time, by dissolving the powdered gelatin and the blended pork into the soup, you can fully extract the aroma and flavor of the pork. The soup after blending should look like this. If there are no chunks of pork remaining, you're all set. Finally, let's adjust the flavor by adding the seasonings. Add 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce. To enhance the richness, add just 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, a pinch of salt. And finally, add 2 teaspoons of soy milk. Soy milk is optional, but it's recommended for adding a creaminess to the soup. Once everything is added, blend for 10 seconds in the blender. It's important to add the seasonings at this stage after boiling, as adding them too early can cause the flavors to dissipate. Now the soup is complete. Keep the soup warm. Next, let's boil the noodles. Prepare a large pot and set it on the stove. Then fill it with plenty of water and bring it to a boil. Once it's boiling, add the noodles and cook them. Follow the instructions on the package for the cooking time of the noodles you purchase. Since I prefer my noodles a bit firmer, I will cook them for about 1 minute less. While the noodles are boiling, let's also prepare the serving bowls. Add hot water to the ramen bowls to warm them up. This step is important to keep the soup from cooling down. Now let's remove the noodles from the pot. Transfer the noodles from the pot to a strainer. And be sure to drain them well. If you don't drain the excess water, the soup will become diluted. Discard the water from the bowls and then place the noodles into the bowls. Now, let's pour in the soup. Since there may be some bubbles from blending, it's recommended to strain the soup through a sieve as you pour to keep the presentation nice. However, it won't change the flavor, so feel free to skip this step if you find it too cumbersome. Once the noodles are nicely arranged, let's add the sauce and toppings. Add half a tablespoon of lard. By adding oil to the surface, you enhance the aroma and richness. Finally, top it off with the sauce you made and green onions, and it's complete. By the way, I also recommend topping it with braised eggs and char siu if you like. I explain how to make it in another video, so please check it out. Let's dig in right away. The flavor and aroma of the pork are thoroughly brought out, and it's very delicious. The sweet sauce also recreates the taste of Ichiran, making it a perfect match for ramen. Please give it a try. I hope you are enjoying today's video. If you enjoyed the recipe, please let me know. If you liked this video, please subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. We also have social media like Instagram, so please check them out in the description. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. ありがとう。